Emma is a familiar face in Macmillan webinars, and very much like Gia, who was our earlier presenter, Emma comes back and we ask her to come back because her sessions are so loved by the audiences who attend them. I'm going to make you blush a little bit, Emma. But look, Emma is an accredited mindfulness teacher. So Emma is our mindfulness expert for adults, but also through this mindfulness for schools project, Emma is a mindfulness teacher for children as well. A regular presenter at conferences, giving talks and workshops on emotional intelligence and mindfulness in the classroom, at schools and conferences, as we say. Emma, I believe you're joining us from Spain today.
I am indeed, yes.
Oh my goodness. How much nicer is the weather there today than here?
Yeah, I have to say it's pretty sunny. Sorry.
Not fair. But look, you can tell we're being very British and talking about the weather, aren't we?
But we just...
But we've absolutely got better things to talk about. And so what I'm going to do is hand you over to Emma. And Emma Reynolds will be talking to us about finding calm in the chaos. So over to you, Emma. Welcome.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And yeah, I'm just looking down at all those people typing away at the moment, telling us where you're from. It's brilliant. It's such an international crowd. I'm going to really encourage you to keep on chatting, okay? So because this is really an interactive session. As Steve mentioned, I'm a mindfulness teacher, and today we're going to be doing a session which is really about you, okay? It's not about teaching per se, it's about learning and receiving ways of finding that calm in the chaos. So I'm going to invite you to do two things. Firstly, I'm going to invite you to use the chat to really let us know what's getting you going and how you're feeling as we go through a series of different practices. And secondly, to really encourage you to do those practices. So the thing about mindfulness is that, you've maybe read about it, you maybe even practice a little bit. It's a wonderful thing to talk about. It's a wonderful thing to hear about. You might even sit and listen to, podcasts about it, etc. But it's only when you actually do it that you really, truly have the experience. So I liken it to, a glass of water. I can tell you about a glass of water until the cows come home. But it's only when you pick up a glass of water and actually take a sip do you actually have the experience. So please join in. It's going to be a lovely session today. So I'm going to start straight away by just inviting you to drop in. What do I mean by that? Well, we're going to just do a little sort of arriving practice. So you're probably sitting down. Just make sure you're sitting nice and comfortably and maybe just sitting up a little bit, okay? So you're just allowing the chest area to be open and the shoulders to be wide. Sometimes I talk about this being like, a king or a queen sitting on their crown, on their throne, okay? And just allowing yourself to be sitting here, dignified, connected, shoulder blades just dropping back a little bit. And maybe just noticing, still with the eyes open, that you're breathing. Now, breath is obviously something that's going on all the time, and yet we very rarely notice it. So just notice gently the in-breath and the out-breath that's going on. Okay. And I want you to just place a hand on your belly, perhaps with your thumb touching your belly button, so the hand is below. And just noticing if you can feel the breath going all the way down into the hand. Now, it might be very subtle, okay? Doesn't matter. And I want you just to notice your breath. So this may be that you discover that as you breathe in, you can count 1, 2, maybe even 3 as you breathe in. And I want you just to add 2 more counts on the out breath. So as you breathe out, it might be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or you may just notice you only do 1, 2 in, and so it's 2 out. So you just keep adding 2 to whatever you do on the in breath, okay? Now, obviously, there's a lot going on, usually around and about. I'm going to just invite you just to close your eyes or lower your gaze. And that just allows you sort of turn inwards, okay? Just to become a little bit more aware of the movements of the breath and the body, okay? So for those of you on the chat, just allow yourselves to let go for a moment of chatting. Close the eyes and just notice the breath. So breathing in and breathing out. And just see if you can really concentrate on that breath. Okay, so 2 more breaths, breathing in, breathing out, following that breath all the way. Great. And now then just gently opening your eyes again. And now if you'd just like to put in that chat box, how are you feeling right now? Just what you notice, and you might even compare it to how you were feeling a moment ago before you did that exercise and how you're feeling now. Now, the beauty about mindful meditation is that there is no right or wrong. Whatever you feel is just whatever you feel, okay? So if you notice you had a very busy mind, that's fine. That's just what you noticed. If you noticed that you were tired, great. Let's have a little look. Yeah, sleepy, calm, better, aware, sense of calm and quiet. Brilliant. Lots of people tapping away there. So there's this experience we have, which is outside in the world, chatting, doing. And then there's this other experience we have, which is coming in and turning towards what's already here with us. Something quite simple as the breath that allows us to just step from this doing mode into this being mode. And this is kind of key to what we'll be talking about today. So, yes, just to get an idea of what's going on for you at the moment, we're going to be looking at what is the chaos for you right now, whatever experience you're having online or working in a school. You may like to mention a little bit about how you deal with it. Yeah, just going to be looking at what stress actually is and how we can help ourselves. So some practices for lowering stress. We're going to be exploring the busy mind and finding ways to return to the present moment experience. So getting out of the head and calming it down and being able to, move into the next moments of our day in a more calm and neutral way. And yeah, finding that elusive calm no matter what. Let's see. That sounds like a big ask, but let's see if we can get there. So let's have a look at this. What is the chaos for you right now? What does it look like for you as a teacher? Is it the stress of distance learning, dealing with Zoom or other ways of connecting with your students online? Or is it having to deal with the restrictions in your school, having to wear a mask all day long? I know some teachers find that, deeply stressful. They've constantly got a mask on their face, and that not only is it uncomfortable, but they can't, necessarily be heard very well by their students. Their students can't hear them. So it's all complicated with having a mask on. So what's the thing that's getting you going at the moment? And then reflecting on how you cope with that stress. And that might be in the moment. So if you're dealing with stressful situations in the classroom, what are you doing to support yourself? How do you get yourself out of that stress patterning? Or it may be to do with, just being at home and thinking about the stress of the day. And how do you then get yourself to relax a little bit? Is it having a drink? Is it going for a walk? Is it doing a bit of blobbing out on the sofa, watching some Netflix? So things like my cat, reading, webinars, breathing and walking in nature. So we might just sort of look at that and consider, yes, we may sometimes do the right thing, go for a walk in nature, pet our cat, but we may also catch ourselves doing things which we may be rather doing unconsciously. Instead of that one glass of wine, we're having 3. Instead of one chocolate biscuit, we're having the whole packet. Buying things that we don't necessarily need online to get a hit of feeling good in that moment. And mindfulness is really an opportunity to just notice when we are in a stress patterning, and see whether, instead of going off into those places where we're rather driven by urges to make ourselves feel better, that we can actually just come in and do a practice for ourselves. And this is, of course, very key when you're right in the middle of it in a classroom experience. Okay, one thing is going away and dealing with your stress, but how do you deal with it when the thing is actually happening in the moment? Okay, so I'm going to just ask you for a moment to go into a bit of a stressful situation. I'll bring you back out again, okay? But I'd like you to just start to consider what happens when you get stressed. How do we break down a stress moment, okay? So I'm going to invite you to think about something that has happened recently in the last week or 2 weeks that has kind of got you going. And what I mean by that is it's got you angry, stressed, frustrated. Maybe you blew your top at somebody, or you were actually, it was one of the quieter emotions where you were feeling really sad, maybe a little bit disconnected or lonely. Okay, don't go for any really big family situations, stories of people being ill or death or anything like that. Keep it sort of relatively, peaking at the time without it being a really big story. Okay, and I'd like you to go there. So again, if you wouldn't mind just leaving the chat for a moment and just coming into this moment. Okay, so closing your eyes, lowering your gaze, and just taking yourself to that place for a moment, something that got you going, okay? And really start to fill in all the details. Where were you? Okay, just for yourself. Where were you? What was happening? Maybe the time of day. It may be a recurring situation, like, remembering that there's certain things that you can't do because of lockdown. So just noticing what thoughts were there. What started the whole thing going? Was it an email? Was it a conversation? Was it an event, a specific thing that somebody did or said? And can you remember what was going on in the head? What conversation was happening? And it may be now. It may be something that's going on right now. Just noticing thoughts. But perhaps you can just drop into what happened. And that those thoughts will have created an emotion, okay, an emotional state. So what emotions were floating around in that moment when you were so stressed? Was it just purely stress? Or was it anxiety, fear, anger, sadness, disappointment? Again, just allowing this to be a quiet moment so you can reflect in the chat afterwards about it. And if you can remember, what did you feel in your body? Was there any sense of tightness or tension? And you may even feel it now as you bring to mind this situation. And so often, but not always, that if we're angry, it may appear in the chest, there's some tightness or some beating of the heart faster. It may be some tightness in the lower belly. Or it may be something that's going on in the back, the jaw getting clenched, the shoulder blades rising up and feeling tension there, in the face as well. Maybe getting a headache. So the stressful situation, something happens, we have thoughts about it, we have an emotional state, and that our body reflects this back to us in some way, some sort of tension that's going on. Okay. All right, so now that's just sort of taking the temperature, as it were, seeing how we are or how we were. And now I would just like you to return to your breath again, and perhaps just noticing the breath moving in and out of your nostrils. So just allowing the mind to quieten a little bit as you focus, instead of focusing on thoughts or emotions or body sensations, the tension in the body, instead focusing in on the nostrils and just noticing as you breathe in, there may be a little coolness there. As we breathe out, maybe there's a little sense of warmth in the nostrils. So you may find that your mind wanders, but just bring it back each time, back to that sensation in the nostrils. And now exploring the breath and seeing whether there's any sense of it in the chest area. You may even like to place a hand on the chest and see if you can just feel the in-breath and how the chest cavity extends as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, it slowly drops back. And then finally noticing if there's a sense of breathing all the way down into the belly. And now just seeing if you can connect all of those feelings. So as you breathe in, you breathe into the nostrils, you feel the chest move, the belly moves. And on the out breath, breathing out, belly, chest, nostrils. So just try doing that a couple of times. Okay, and maybe you just notice that things start to calm a little bit. And then finally, I just invite you, still with your eyes closed, just to listen to sounds around you for a moment. So just becoming aware of whatever's here right now in this present moment. Okay, great. And then again, just slowly opening the eyes and noticing how you're feeling right now. Welcome back. But also, if you just in the chat box, maybe did you notice there was any body tension when you were going through that process? Did you notice that you had any sense of that experience, even though maybe it happened a week ago? As you brought it to mind, it started to activate something in the body. Because quite often, not only do we go through a stressful experience once, but then when we talk about it or think about it, maybe in bed at night, suddenly we're going through the whole experience again. And so we don't just get the stressful experience once, we keep getting it. And obviously, every time we tell everybody about our stressful experience, of course, we activate the whole process again and we go through it all again. So our powers of imagination can be incredibly strong. The problem isn't actually even here right now, and yet here it is because we've brought it in by thinking about it. So yeah, we start to get like tension in the body, and like I say, those are the kind of main areas. But people can get tension also in their arms, in their legs, in their feet, in their hands. And so it's just what we're starting to do here is break down what happens when we get stressed. So we've got the thoughts, we've got the emotional state, and we've got something going on in the body. And so it's really good when we get stressed to just go to those places. What am I actually thinking right now? What am I thinking here? How is this affecting my emotional state? And instead of getting stuck there, which becomes very much in the brain, and then we've got a problem, we're trying to fix it, and then we tell ourselves stories about it, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, that we just start to cut the loop. We actually come into the body and notice how the body is experiencing this stress. And then bringing in a practice like, for example, just noticing the breath, deepening the breath little by little, you're starting to just take yourself out of that heightened emotional state and allowing yourself to move back into the day by doing something like just listening to something that's here. Okay, so the thoughts, if you think about thoughts, we don't control them, they just appear, right? We don't choose them. We don't choose either the emotional state or the body sensations. So there's a lot of stuff that can just happen to us without and sometimes so quick we don't even know we're going. But once we catch ourselves, right, hang on a minute, I see what's going on. And in that moment of seeing, we're doing something really interesting. a minute ago we were stuck in the whole drama of it, and now we're stepping out and we're starting to become an observer of our experience. And this is really key, because when we're in it, we can be very reactive. But when we start to step out of the experience, we can actually start to get a little bit of perspective, step back out of the whole thing and go, right, I see where I'm going. Do I want to continue, basically? And so in that moment, we're actually starting to get a choice that I don't have to act the same way. Just because this thing has happened, maybe again, I don't necessarily have to go down the same route. And this is a wonderful, freeing idea, because, of course, so often we are looping all the time. The thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the experience, and then we have a reaction, and then that creates maybe more problems, and then off we go again. And it can be, sometimes I think that, you know, people who are dealing with depression, it's because a lot of it is, I just can't keep going in this loop, you know, this constant story I'm telling myself about either myself or other people or the experience. And what this is offering is that you can actually start to go, I can see what's happening, all the things that I didn't choose, but now I'm starting to choose to take a different route. I'm going to calm myself down, I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to move into the next moments of my day, and therefore respond in a different way, which is really key. So what is all this stress? Well, we spend quite a bit of time, I'm afraid to say, judging our experience. Okay, so A is therefore like how life is, and B is how we would like life. So, for example, at the moment, how life is, well, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. So we might be dealing with lockdown and all the things that come with that. How we want life to be, possibly without a pandemic, right? And all the things that go with that. So our mind is discovering that, oh, hang on a minute, there's a disparity here. How I want things and how life actually is different. And unfortunately, the mind then kicks into touch and starts to try and fix the situation. Like, it starts to talk to itself about, how can we resolve this? How can I feel better? I don't like what I've got. How can I resolve it in some way? And off it goes, starting to tell itself stories. And this is very, very stressful. So, of course, if we are in other situations that we can actually change, it is within our means to change the situation, then, you know, possibly go ahead and change it and resolve it. But quite often we are stuck with situations we don't like. We're standing, you know, in the queue at the supermarket, and it's all taking too long. And guess what? Ping, suddenly we start to get stressed. The mind kicks in. This is all taking too long. I don't want this. I've got to, you know, hurry up. I'm going to be late for this thing. And yet here we are, living our lives, unable to change the situation. And then your next 5 or 10 minutes in the queue is going to be nothing but a story of what I call the moaning mind, complaining about the thing we've got. So with mindfulness, the idea is that, yes, we can't change the situation, but can we bring something else to the experience? So here is the invitation, that rather than getting stuck in the loop all the time, we can start to practice acceptance. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about acceptance, because it can be misunderstood as resignation. And it's really not. It's not just, oh, well, whatever, life's just going to roll me over and I'll just have to deal with it. It's very much an active process. Okay, like I say, I'll talk about this in a little bit. But the invitation here is that when we get stimulus, and by that I mean, you know, someone being rude to us, you know, an extra pile of work dumped on our table that we weren't expecting, we lose our keys, whatever the thing is that gets us going, the event, that quite often we'll just go into what we call automatic pilot. An automatic pilot is this where we don't think about it. We're not really conscious. We're already in it. The whole thing is happening, and that we are then going into reaction. So we're complaining about it. We're having an argument with somebody. You know, we're not dealing with it in a very wise way. And the alternative here is that instead of going down that same old well-trodden route, that we can start to receive the stimulus, whatever the thing is, whatever the event is, and start through a different practice to respond wisely to our experiences. Because let's face it, when those stimuluses happen, when those events happen, we can't do anything about them. The only thing we can do is start to change the way that we perceive those experiences, And in that way, send ourselves onto a different route, something that's maybe a little bit more calm and peaceful. And that really, when we start to do this, we are learning to be self-compassionate to ourselves in these moments. Like I said, we didn't choose the thoughts, the emotions, the body sensations, but what we can do now is take ourselves on a different route and not judge ourselves, because this is the other thing that happens. We get like a double whammy. Not only do we find ourselves furious because something has just happened which we feel is really unfair, but then we start to judge ourselves for feeling furious, right? So then we can get angry about always feeling angry, or stressed about the fact that I'm constantly stressed, or sad that I just do nothing but feel sad all the time. So we kind of then layer on and on and on and on, more and more fuel for this stress to just continually carry on burning. So let's just look at this acceptance, this word here. What is acceptance? Now, some of you may recognize this little cartoon. So we've got a situation. It's raining, okay? There's nothing we can do about it. It's raining. It is just a life fact. The mind can then kick in. You know, I don't like the rain. I don't want it to be raining. My day would be better if it wasn't raining. My day is ruined. Every day is like this. It's always like this. Why does it have to happen to me? Blah, da, 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 da. Okay, this is what I would call the moaning mind. Okay, we have an experience and then we negate it. We don't want it. We're absolutely resistant to the experience. The alternative here is that it's raining. Yes. Yes, that's all that's going on right now, is that there is a new situation that is happening. And that once we come to that place of acceptance, we may then move along in a more wise way, respond more wisely. And in this, experience, it might be, I'm going to take my umbrella today. Okay, so this thing is happening. How can I meet it without going into just wanting to push it away and not have it? And I just wanted to read a lovely quote here from Jack Cornfield. He's a mindfulness teacher. Acceptance does not mean inaction or resignation. We may need to respond strongly at times. From a peaceful center, we can respond instead of react. Unconscious reactions create problems. Yeah, that's when you send an email to someone, and send it and then go, half an hour later, why did I say that? Considered responses bring peace. With a peaceful heart, whatever happens can be met with wisdom. Peace is not weak, it is unshakable. Now, I would suggest that maybe as teachers of young minds, or of all minds, that this is something that you would really not only benefit for yourselves as teachers, but also to bring into your classroom experience, okay? Because obviously your students are learning not only what you're teaching, but how you are dealing with situations. So here we are, acceptance. So like I said, when we get into sort of stress mode, we have a bunch of thoughts, which can be really, really very convincing. This really, really is the truth. This is really, really bad, etc., etc. We get a whole bunch of feelings or emotions, and then we get the body sensations. And what we can do in that moment is start to accept it. Oh yeah, right. I see these thoughts are flooding in. Aha, I see that what's turning up right now for me is anxiety or whatever. And that this is being, I can locate it in the body in some way. I'm starting to notice that little bit of tension going again in my shoulders, or my heart is starting to beat fast. So we start to get curious with what the body experiences. And in that way, we get out of the mind space. So I'm going to invite you right now, again, to close your eyes. So please, just for a moment, leave the chat and just close your eyes and drop into what is here right now. So thoughts will be floating about, but see if you can just allow them to come and go and become aware of sounds again. Now, if you have nothing in particular, just stay open. If you discover you've got some what we would call annoying sound going on, see if you can actually just allow it to be sound rather than labeling it as good or bad. That it just is. We notice so often that we have a tendency to judge our experience. Just let it be. And still staying with eyes closed. Again, just starting to notice the breath, and just see if you can take 3 conscious breaths. So breathing in, and breathing out. And you may notice your mind is wandering. No problem. Just keep just choosing to focus it back on the breath. And this is really where we're going with this, because our tendency is to float away and get stuck in our thoughts. Perfectly normal and natural. And we can just let that drop and come back to something that we are choosing to focus on. So we don't need to be thinking about emails or anything else right now. Let's just get really curious with this next breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Okay, and then just a few more breaths. And I reflect back to you that quite often I bet you ask your students to pay attention. And yet, do you know how to pay attention yourselves? What's the trick? Just keep coming back to a point of focus. So in this moment, the point of focus is the breath. And now I'm going to change it. So now, still with eyes closed, I would like you to feel your feet on the floor. And so again, not just the idea of the feet, but the actual felt sensation. Maybe noticing the pressure of the heel, the sole of the foot. Maybe noticing if you've got socks on or shoes, if there's any tightness there. Just seeing if you can feel into the toes. Can you feel them touching each other, or there's any sense of tingling there, or just whatever is there. So see how you can start to move the focus of your attention. 1 minute you can be in thoughts, the next minute you can be with the breath, the sounds, next minute you can be with your feet. Now I'm going to ask you to place your attention on your shoulders. And just notice if there's any tension there, any tightness. And then we're going to invite you to do a little bit of mindful movement. So still with eyes closed, just allowing the shoulder blades to roll round. So picking your shoulders up, maybe breathing in, rolling the shoulders back as you breathe out. Now we're not trying to get anywhere, okay? We're not trying to even get relaxed. We're just trying to notice all the little movements of the body as we move. And you may notice that one shoulder is more tight than the other. You may notice you don't want to do this, and that's fine. You can just stop. Or you may notice you want to do more and you want to get those movements bigger and bigger. Maybe it wants to come into the arms, and maybe the arms would like to just stretch a little bit. That's it. Bringing some movement into the hands. Maybe dropping the head forward, allowing the head just to be heavy, and noticing all the little muscles in the back of the neck. And allow the breath to move as though you're sending breath into those areas of tension if you have any in the neck. So very gently, very, very slowly, okay? Starting to move the head around a little bit. So this is just your time. No one's pushing you on. Just to explore where tension is in the body. Okay. And then bringing the head back up. And still, if you can just stay a little longer with your eyes closed, we can just practice something called name and tame. So quite often when we get stuck in our emotions, we say, I am angry or sad or frustrated or whatever. And I want you to just see if you can rephrase that a little bit so that there is frustration here, or there is anxiety here, or even there is tiredness here. Got a very different feel to it. There's you, and then there is this experience that happens, that comes and goes. Anger comes and goes, tiredness comes and goes, anxiety comes and goes. Because when we get into stress patterning, quite often it can feel all enveloping, like this is me all the time, always in this state. And that's not true. And so we're giving it a little bit of space. Stepping back. Oh yeah, there's me here in this present moment experience. And there is something called, like I say, tiredness, for example, here right now. And then to explore again, where is that tiredness? How do we know we're tired? What's happening? Is it a feeling around the eyes? Is it maybe a bit of heaviness around the chest area or somewhere else? So being really curious just helps us to escape from those looping thoughts. Okay. And again, just taking another deep breath in and breathing. And imagine you're breathing all the way down into your toes. And breathing in and then breathing out and just letting it all go. Okay. And then when you're ready, just gently opening your eyes again, maybe having a last little stretch. And just again, seeing how you feel. So, what are we doing here? One of the key elements here is really about bringing ourselves back to the senses. So you may notice that I said, listen to sound, okay? And how easy that is, right? We just stop and we just drop in. So that could be such a quick way of just breaking that thought loop. I see where I'm going with this. Let me just stop for a minute. Stopping is really key. Let me just close my eyes for a moment, or even just look at the ground and just listen to sound. And it just already starts the whole ball moving in a different direction. Or I invited you to become aware of the sense of touch, really. So the feet on the floor, or the sensation of the breath moving in the body. Okay, but why? Why do this? Why is it? What is going on with us when we get into stress mode? Well, our stress is really our fight and flight response. Okay, fight, flight, and freeze, it can be as well. So when we are, we're walking along, everything's relatively neutral, nothing big is happening, and then suddenly we get some news, we have this event happen that triggers something in us, and we perceive that maybe something is no longer good anymore. I need to maybe worry, and our amygdala at the back of our head there sends out a message to the body to say, oh, there's something happening, red alert. And so we suddenly get filled with adrenaline and cortisol, all these drugs that are ready to get us going to do something, to fight. So fight, we could therefore consider being angry, shouting, tension. I'm literally like clasping my hands as I'm even saying it. Or flight, running away, escaping, getting away from the situation in some way, all of which need us to be able to actively move. Okay, our heart beats faster, our body gets tense, blood starts pumping around our body, we take shorter, more shallow breaths. So all of these things that we may have recognized when we were talking about our stress moment are, of course, our fight and flight mechanism kicking in. And the thing is that often we just get there and we get stuck in that loop and that loop and that loop. And that can even then obviously move into the evening, telling our partners about what's been going on, feeling just frustrated, and it can be carried on into our next moments, and even into, trying to get to sleep or waking up at 3 a.m. and not being able to relax. And of course, you can't relax, because once you'll start thinking about whatever that situation is, as we can see, the imagination brings it back into the present moment. The body thinks it's happening right now, and you're flooded again with adrenaline and cortisol. Now, there's no way that you can sleep when those are floating around your body. You need to be able to get yourself calm. So getting the body calm helps the mind to calm. Okay, so we don't get stuck here. We move into this bodily experience instead and bring in some of those practices. Because let's face it, we all have busy minds. I've seen a few different quotes on how many thoughts we have a day, something like 75,000 thoughts a day. So it's no surprise that, when we close our eyes and if we do try and sit quietly and just, step out for a moment, we often get bombarded with our thoughts. So I'm just going to invite you in these last few moments to practice working with those thoughts. So you may notice that you have thoughts that send you into the past. So those are thoughts like, oh, I should have done this. Things should have been different if only. And often that's a story about if only X had happened, then I would be happier and calmer now, or more happy with my life in some way. Or we go into the future, all about what if, and then we come back and with all these terrible imaginings of what's going to happen in the future. Which is just imagination. There is no tangible future here. The only experience we ever have is this present moment experience. But boy, can we stress ourselves out with all the thoughts about the future. So the future is what if, and that what if is again the mind trying to do some planning. What if this carries on for another 6 months? What if? What am I going to do about it? And if you think about it for a second, it's completely impossible to consider all the scenarios and then have a perfect plan for each one of them. And yet that is kind of what the mind is trying to do. Or we may find that thoughts are very much about the present moment experience and that we don't want them. We don't want this experience. We wanted another experience, or I wanted how it was when it was nicer before in some way. And this experience I don't want. So there we've gone back into that, life being one way and how we want it being another. So as we sit down quietly now and just close our eyes one more time, I want you to just allow that to happen for a moment. So just close your eyes. And I'd like you to imagine that you're just sitting at a train station. Okay? Just sitting at a train station. And you're just sitting here, quite relaxed, just noticing your breath. And just see if you can stay with the breath. But when a thought pops in, it's just like a train. Okay, so it's like we even say that, a train of thoughts. So just allow it to come in and go out again. So we don't need to jump up, try and stop the thought, that would be crazy at a train station. And we don't also need to get on board it. So we don't need to start thinking and then get lost in thought and go off out the station. If you do that, come back. Notice, oh, I've gone off with the train. Come back to the breath, back to just sitting. So thoughts are totally acceptable. There's no problem with thinking. We can just become curious. Oh yeah, look, there's a thought about the past. That's called remembering. Or, oh look, there's a future thought. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next when this session ends. I'm thinking about my certificate. Just notice that and go, oh look, I'm on that train again. Come back to the present moment, back to this breath, or back to the feet on the floor. Well, you may notice there's some resistance to doing this practice. I don't really want to be doing this right now. It's another thought. Notice that, and then come back to the breath again. So thoughts can come and go, and we don't need to be dragged around by them. Just because a thought is here doesn't mean that it's necessarily absolutely 100% true and needs to be dealt with in this moment. And now, still with your eyes closed, just ask yourself, is there any sense of calm right now? So even if you've got a busy mind, the observer of that busy mind, you may notice, is quite calm and quite neutral, doesn't really mind if thoughts are coming or not. And that the blue sky, you know, quite often we feel like another way of looking at it is thoughts are like clouds, you know, we get very thick thunder clouds and the whole sky seems to go grey and everything's very dark. But we can reflect that underneath those clouds, that blue sky is always, always there. So with curiosity, we can use our conscious awareness to just watch the moment-to-moment experience. And you may also reflect that everything always changes. The one constant, always changing. Thoughts come and go, body sensations come and go. Okay. Great. So just again, opening your eyes, and if you want to reflect back to the group through the chat, what you noticed. I've talked a lot about the stress element, of course, but what else can we do to help ourselves when we're in those stressful moments? So we're talking very much about bringing ourselves back into the present moment. And one wonderful practice that we can do is a gratitude practice. So we can spend a lot of time mental moaning about the things that we don't have, the way things aren't going well. You can also choose in those moments to refocus on what is going well. What is good in this present moment experience? And as you start to, I'm going to invite you to right now become aware of what's good in this present moment experience. Maybe it's this, maybe there is a sense of calm right now for you. Or perhaps it's to do with, you know, where you are, gratitude for the place that you live, or the fact that you are living in a house that has hot water, you know. It can be anything. We take so many things for granted until they're taken away from us, right? And then we really wish we had them back again. So maybe we can foster a sense of gratitude for the things that are already here. You've been doing a lot of breathing exercises. The fact that you can breathe, the fact that you are alive, you know, is something very simple, but, you know, clearly very important that we can be very grateful for. And when we start to practice more gratitude, we start to appreciate not only ourselves, but others around us as well, what they're doing. And you get good at what you practice. So you start to maybe get better at noticing more often the good stuff that is already here. It's not over there in some future moment that we've got to get to. It's right now in this present moment experience. And if you think about it, the present moment, it's the only moment we ever have. The future is gone. It's only in memory, and the past is in memory, and the future is an experience which we are ultimately only imagining. The only moment we have is this present moment experience. And that when we practice gratitude, it actually does us good from a neuroscience point of view. It is actually starting to make connections in the brain which are connected with those feel-good hormones. So things like oxytocin start to flow and we feel better, right? So gratitude makes us happy. So quite often we spend a lot of our lives trying to feel happy, and it's over there somewhere, and when this situation ends, and when that happens, and when I get this, and blah, 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 blah. And therefore we always leave our happiness for another moment. And again, the invitation is to notice what is here right now, which is good, and start to feel the appreciation for it. And you may even, again, notice that that is a bodily experience, that there's maybe something going on in the heart region, feeling a little bit more open, maybe a little bit lighter. Maybe you want to reflect back on that. Okay. What makes you feel good? And ultimately, gratitude turns what we have into enough. So when we don't have that feeling of lack anymore, what do we have? Perhaps that sense of calm, no matter what is going on. Okay, so thank you all very much for your attention. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about mindfulness, I've created a special playlist. Actually, I have a YouTube channel and you can just find the details there. And I've created a special Macmillan education playlist, and that is for you to just have a little look. There's maybe sort of 8 or 9 videos there. Some of them are meditations that I've created. Some of them are about people talking about mindfulness and bringing mindfulness into the classroom. There's one there for sleep as well. So just have a little look around and see what you can find. And I really, really encourage you to, if you found this useful, keep, remember that, keep looking. There's lots and lots on the internet there for downloading mindfulness meditations, doing mindfulness practices, and of course, not only for yourself, but maybe consider bringing that into the classroom for your students as well, so that they can benefit from that. Okay, so thank you very much. Hi, Steve, I see you back.
I'm back, Emma. Thank you so much. That was so wonderful, relaxing, and insightful. I hope you all feel nice and relaxed and peaceful now, but also that you've got some great ideas that you can take away and run with. Maybe not run with them, maybe sit calmly with them,
Yes.
but hopefully some great ideas for you. Gabriella made a comment halfway through that peaceful, relaxed teachers make for peaceful, relaxed students. And I think we all want peaceful students, right? We want our students to be calm as well. A couple of questions for you, Emma.
Okay, yes.
Sandra is wondering what you can recommend to help overcome a habit of procrastination.
Funnily enough, this was in the other session as well I did earlier. So procrastination. So if we break it down, what is procrastination? It is sitting with a whole bunch of thoughts in our head, which usually go something like, I've got to get on with this thing. I've got to get, what's wrong with you? Why are you sitting on the sofa watching Netflix again? You should be doing X, right? And that voice can be at times quite aggressive, and we might even call it a bit of a bullying voice. And then that creates another voice in the head, which goes something like, I don't want to do that right now. I'm so fed up of having to do stuff all the time. I'm tired. I am blah, 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 blah. Okay, there's a whole bunch of reasons why this thing should not be done. And also feeling a little bit victimized by the bully over here. So what happens is that this goes in a loop, right? Get on with it. I don't want to right now, maybe later. Why are you still sitting on the sofa? Blah, 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 blah. My hand puppet's going here. Now, you may notice there is a third sort of person in the room here, which is me, okay, or you, that can witness this whole experience as something called thinking. Aha, there's a whole bunch of thoughts here. What should we call these thoughts? These are procrastination thoughts. Okay, so we've given them a label. We've now stepped out of the storyline and we're just watching the experience a little bit. And then again, it's a little bit like before, that we start to notice, right, what's this creating in me? Some sort of anxiety. And rather than getting stuck with, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? Should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? You go, let me just feel what this feels like for a moment and bring in a practice. Let me just notice that I'm feeling tight in the chest and just breathe a little bit. Okay, I don't have to do anything right now, just breathe, or feel the feet on the floor, or listen to exterior sounds. And then the point about procrastination is it's got a point, right? That this bully is trying to move you along. So in a way, it is your friend. It's just got a little bit, loud and aggressive. So is there any truth in that story that you're being told by your thoughts that is true and that you can do, and that you can move into those next moments with like baby steps rather than the whole thing? Because unfortunately that voice often tells you, like, why haven't you written that book yet? And it's like, oh my God, give me a chance. Whilst, hey, what about sitting down and just writing something? Feels a lot more positive and a lot more, compassionate towards yourself, to just move yourself in baby steps towards the experience. And in that way, you start to quieten the sound of the loud voices in there. But the first thing is really to notice the experience. There's thoughts here, there's an emotional quality to it, and that it is a physical experience that is going on. And then once we've got ourselves a little bit calmer, it's like, now I'm not feeling so stressed. What could I actually do? What feels doable? in this moment. And it may just be a few, movements towards actually fulfilling what it is you're supposed to be doing. So it's a much gentler experience.
Fabulous. I love it. And I think as teachers, generally, we're pretty good at that self-reflection moment where after class we do consider what went well, what didn't go so well, and how we feel about that. And I do think, putting yourself in the moment and how is this making me feel is really important, isn't it? I love that concept there, Emma. Safar said to us earlier on in the session, Safar said, it's important to remember to pat ourselves on our shoulders, to...
Oh my God, absolutely. Yes, yes, absolutely. So when you were saying about reflecting after a class, quite often what can happen is, oh God, that, and we just head towards the negative, right?
Yeah.
For good reason, because we're trying to fix things, but it can feel really overwhelming. So not only have you had maybe a not so great experience, but then on top of that, you then give yourself a whipping for all the things that went wrong. Now, if that's your tendency, you can notice that tendency and go, do you know what? Just for once, I'm going to make a different choice. I'm going to step out of that classroom and I'm just going to say what was good. What can I be grateful for? We're back on that one again. Like, what was good in this experience? And just really go for it. Really try and encourage yourself, as though almost if it's difficult for you to do to yourself, you could almost imagine you're coaching someone else. Imagine that you're with a teacher on their first day and they've had that experience. You wouldn't be standing there going, well, that was terrible, you did that wrong, you did that wrong, you did that wrong. You'd be hopefully very kindly going, yeah, well, okay, some things to change there, but what was great was, even though it went off the rails at that moment, you managed to turn it around, or you managed to stop for a moment and gather yourself in some way. And so pick out those positives, and the more time you do that, the better the whole experience is going to be, because you're being kind to yourself and you're learning, even if it was terrible, that you're learning, well, okay, how can I bring out the good in the terrible experience and give myself some kudos for still standing here, not running away, but going, right, I'm going to learn from this experience. And then we change problems, as we call them, into opportunities. Okay, so that there's like, yeah, what's the opportunity here? How can I look at this in a different way, instead of just giving myself a bad time, and actually make some choices for the next experience? Because let's face it, that experience has now passed, so there is no point, apart from bringing out what we can from it, to keep rehashing it and keep making ourselves suffer from it. So take out the good stuff, learn from the bad stuff, and move on into the next moments.
Great. And Farhana has followed on with that with a question, but I think you may have answered it actually. Why do we always find fault in ourselves when something goes wrong? Why do we always run to the negative?
Well, we have got a negativity. The good news is it's all part of your makeup. Okay, so it's not just you, it's everybody on the planet. It's part of keeping us safe, literally keeping us alive. It's part of the survival mode. So just quickly, if we go back to those cavemen and women, when they were sitting next to the cave, right, and they were looking at the beautiful sunset and all the rest of it, the food's on the table, everything's going well, that's all great. But what we really need to know about as cavemen and women is there any danger? Is there something on the horizon that's about to come and attack us? Okay, so we take rather what's the good stuff as sort of, just given, because the mind is set to literally look for the problems, because if they can find the problem quick enough, then they will fix it, okay, and we will stay safe. So that's why, which is why gratitude practice is really useful at balancing up, because there's loads of really good stuff in every single moment. But oh yeah, well, I'm breathing. Oh yeah, well, I've got water in my taps, and I've got when I turn the light on, the electricity works. We've got so used to it, we've forgotten how very, very fortunate we are. So just taking time to recognize those things really balances up that negativity bias, okay, and makes us realize there's actually a lot of good stuff in every moment right now.
I love it. You see, there's a logical explanation for everything, isn't there? And I really do love it. And I love this concept of balancing. Remember to balance everything. It's really great. So look, Ellen had one comment towards the end, which I think was great. Ellen said we should always be grateful for the little things because they become the big things. But I think we're really grateful for quite a big thing today, which is this wonderful session from Emma, which hopefully will have a huge impact on how we think about well-being and our own personal well-being practice. So thank you so much for today, Emma. It's been mind-blowing. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Macmillan, and thank you all you lovely teachers. Yeah, you all deserve massive pats on the back there. You're doing a fantastic job in very tricky situations.
Absolutely. And I'm also going to take a moment to thank Will and Federica as our backup behind the scenes people who make sure that not only do we get to see great presenters and great sessions, but also it all works and that we're able to remain connected, which is fabulous. So thank you to both of them too.